Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 241 of the podcast, or you're joining us live on Facebook or YouTube. Today's Monday, May 17th. Day late again this week, but, still a week in between episodes. So what are you complaining about? My fault this week. I made a family weekend again this weekend. Went to Orlando with the wife and the kiddo and my in-laws, and went to Disney World. Did a couple of the parks there. It was interesting because we saw the transition of masks required in Disney versus masks not required in Disney. So we went on Friday. What's up, Mark? We went on Friday to Magic Kingdom, and masks were required. Then Saturday, we just kind of hung out at the hotel. And then yesterday, we went to Epcot. And between Friday and yesterday, Disney decided no more masks mandatory when you're outdoors. It was weird. It was a weird experience because you guys, if you're a longtime listener of the show, you guys probably know that the fam and I have annual passes for Disney. So we've gone, several times since. What's up, Travis? We've gone several times since the pandemic, and it's always been you have to wear a mask at all times unless you're sitting still, actively eating or drinking. So it's Florida. It's hot. It's uncomfortable wearing the masks, but that's the policy, so we do it. It's a little tough to get a 3-year-old to understand that and to wear a mask all day, especially like going on rides and stuff. It's uncomfortable for her, but that's what we got to do, so we do it. So it was interesting being there the day after they changed the policy. So we're at Magic Kingdom Friday. We're wearing masks the entire day, whole deal, and it's kind of routine at this point. And then Sunday we go to Epcot, and you don't have to wear the mask outside. You have to put it on, like if you go into one of the food kiosks or if you go on a ride or something, you got to wear it the whole time. At this point, it's like, I think the people who are most concerned about the virus have been vaccinated. And I guess, people, if they haven't gotten vaccinated at this point, they are either just still keeping their distance from people, or they're not worried about getting it. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like Disney was always on the more conservative side with all of this. So to see them go lax with the mask policy was kind of like a big eye opener for me. It was kind of like, it was a surreal experience too, because like I said, we've gone a few times during the pandemic. It's pretty close drive for us. It's like an hour and a half. So we usually go over there, and, we'll either stay for the weekend or just go for the day and come home, especially because you're outside, you're wearing masks, and they do a good job like keeping people distance. So you always felt like pretty safe there. And, yeah, it's weird, man, because now there's all companies making statements about what their mask policy is going to be going forward. Like, I don't know, Costco, for example, says you don't have to wear masks anymore if you're vaccinated. And that goes on the honor system. But like Home Depot is like, no way, we're sticking with the masks. And it's like, of course, there's people outraged at both. How could they get rid of the mask policy? And how could they still require masks? Just, outrage on both ends of the spectrum. And as usual, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm like, all right, we got to wear a mask here, but not here. I'll keep one in my pocket. And let's just do whatever you want to do. Let's just do it. Just the path of least resistance, the least amount of confrontation. That's what I like, which is funny because people are always surprised. Everybody knows I'm so into mixed martial arts and stuff, and people are always so surprised to hear that I hate confrontation. I guess because in my head, I already jump ahead to like, this is going to lead to a fight, and I don't want to get in a fight because I've been learning how to fight long enough that to know that I don't ever want to get in a fight. In any case, that's neither here nor there. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Let me say this right off the top because I always forget until the end. If you want to grab some MMA on the Rocks gear, t-shirts and hoodies and tank tops, stuff like that, that's a over the top under the influence, you can do so through our friends at Team Reaper. Website is reaper1.co. You can use the promo code MMA Rocks10. That's MMAROCKS10. Save yourself 10% on your order. You don't have to order my t-shirt. You can go on there and support a fighter, from UFC fighters all the way down to regional fighters. Everybody says that fighters should get paid more. So, do something about it. Put some cash in a fighter's pocket by buying a t-shirt. And right here, I'll display a comment from my buddy Mark Fellows, all the way on the other side of the globe. The hoodies are super soft and tremendous quality. Thank you for adding to my plug here, Mark. I do appreciate that. The hoodies are super nice. I definitely don't need a hoodie at this point in the year because it's May in Florida. It's pretty much 90 degrees every day. But if you guys live somewhere where it's still a little chilly, it's still hoodie weather, go grab yourselves a hoodie. MMA on the Rocks or otherwise, they're all the same quality. So if you want to get somebody else's hoodie, I won't be offended. Just use my promo code, MMA Rocks 10. All right. Now we got that out of the way. Let's talk about some violence, shall we? So I was watching this card at the hotel we were staying at, in between dealing with a hyperactive toddler who was excited about Disney World and stuff like that, which is fun. It's really cool to see. My daughter's 3 now. It's cool to see her start to recognize rides at Disney and get excited about them and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. I always say 2 hours of sparring is the equivalent of 10 minutes of being a toddler parent. And that's no exaggeration. It's actually easier to get punched and kicked in the face than it is, raising a toddler. But that's why it's so much more rewarding being a parent than it is being, whatever it is I am in the gym. Wouldn't really call myself a fighter anymore. I do, I participate, but I'm not really I'm not I wouldn't consider myself the same as a Charles Oliveira or a Michael Chandler. What a main event, man. This was such an exciting fight. And when I was breaking this fight down last week, I was thinking about, what are Charles Oliveira's paths to victory? And I thought it would be throwing reckless strikes at Chandler because he's not worried about being taken down, and maybe landing something there, or just, outpointing him throughout the course of the fight, because I knew Chandler would get in his face. I knew Chandler hit harder. I knew Chandler would be hard to take down, which Oliveira got him down, which that was amazing. And then the grappling exchange was so good. Oliveira got to Chandler's back and he was lifting the leg up in the air. And for those who have never seen Michael Chandler fight before, he's so good at escaping the back and just turning into you and turning into your guard. He's so explosive there. Nobody can stay on this guy's back and maintain that position. I've never seen it before. He's just so explosive. He's so good at getting back to his feet too. I gave the first round to Chandler, but it seemed like he really expended a lot of energy because it's a lot of short bursts. It was a lot of explosive movements from Chandler in that first round. So he was breathing heavy going into that second round. And then Oliveira, man, he pressured Chandler right back, which is exactly what he needed to do, because if he started backing up to Michael Chandler, he would have spent 5 rounds backing up until he got knocked out. That's how the fight would have gone. So he pressured right back. He shelled up and was counter-striking beautifully. He stayed right in the pocket. He missed with the right, and then he came back with the left hook, and everything was so tight. A lot of you guys know I teach intro Muay Thai, and I deal with a lot of beginners, and it's one of the things that you try and reiterate constantly when you throw punches is throw it straight out and bring it right back to your face. And if you look at the slow motion of the combination that Charles Oliveira threw to finish this fight, he brings a right hand right back to his face. He moves his head off the center line and he throws that left hook so tight, so perfect. And it was really the precision of it that put Chandler down. And you could see he doesn't take his eyes off his target, even though he's got Chandler throwing bombs in his face. And that's exactly what he needed to do to win this fight, because a lot of times, Michael Chandler talked about it a lot in the lead up to this fight. People feel his presence in there. They feel his power, and they don't want anything to do with it. And then they get frustrated because they know they can't take him down. Nobody gave Charles Oliveira this memo because, one, Oliveira's not worried about being taken down. He's got the most submissions in UFC history. So he doesn't care if he gets taken down. And then he was able to get Michael Chandler down. So, if he started, getting the worst of it on the feet, he knew, there's a chance I can get this guy to the ground. So that must have been a huge confidence booster for him. The finish was beautiful. It was a great fight by Chandler. This was just an awesome main event. Now we have a new lightweight champion, Charles Oliveira, 28 fights in the UFC. This guy has come such a long way. It was so awesome to see him, get that belt put around his waist. And I'm a fan of both of these guys. It's not, I very rarely will root for or against somebody. I just, I love to see a good fight. And this was a great fight. All around. It had everything you could want. It had big strikes. It had technical striking. It had grappling exchanges, high-level grappling exchanges. It had explosiveness. It had a finish. You can't script a better main event than that. And that's what we got here at UFC 262 between these two guys fighting for the title that Khabib vacated I don't know, 10 months ago, 11 months ago, whatever it was. I think it was October of last year that he fought Gaethje and then retired. And then, Dana was trying to convince him to come back, and that whole mess for a while. Sipping on some Heaven Hill bourbon here, 7-year, bonded, which means it has to be aged for a minimum of 4 years. This was aged for 7 years, 100 proof. Bonded bourbon has to be bottled at 100 proof by law. And it's quite delicious. One of my top 5 favorite bourbons, in case you guys were curious as to what I was sipping on at 11 p.m. Eastern on a Monday night. Matt Temple says, fight of the year. Can't wait for the rematch. I'm with you on that one. I would rather see a rematch between Chandler and Oliveira than see Oliveira fight the winner of Poirier-McGregor. I just feel like it's a better fight any way you want to do it. I just think it's weird now because we had such an amazing title fight, and then the McGregor Poirier fight is supposedly the bigger money fight, but why isn't the best fighter in the world getting the biggest payday? So does it kind of devalue the title a little bit? I don't know. I don't know how much value the title had on it to begin with. When Poirier was offered the title, he said no, he'd rather fight Conor for the payday. So that took a little wind out of the sails of that fight for me. But I know for the average person who doesn't watch MMA every week like I do, and like you guys probably do, I imagine very few of you tune into the show just to get the recaps. Like most of you probably also watched all the fights. Let's see. So, yeah, I think it's awesome. I think Obviously they're not going to rematch this right away since it was a finish. I would love to see Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje. I think that fight makes sense. They're both coming off of losses. So, why not do that? Wait, is Gaethje coming off of a loss? Somebody feel free to correct me on that. My timeline's all mixed up here. Anyway, Charles Oliveira, new lightweight champion. Awesome fight. His striking looks so good. He's come such a long way since he started in the UFC. Those early fights against Jim Miller, Cowboy Cerrone. He struggled in the striking a little bit, and then it got to be like people realized how good his submissions were, and he was able to throw a little wilder without worrying about being taken down, and that worked for him for a while. But now his striking is so crisp, it's so good. This is the best active lightweight out there right now. There's an argument for Dustin Poirier, but when given the opportunity to step up and take that title, he said no. So, the belt is on its rightful owner right now in Charles Oliveira. Co-main event, Beneil Dariush, one-sided victory over Tony Ferguson. So Tony Ferguson has now lost, 13 rounds in a row, 12 rounds in a row. There was the Gaethje loss, and then Oliveira beat the hell out of him, and now Dariush. It was understandable because he had, I think, the best winning streak in lightweight history outside of Khabib. 12 wins in a row, 11 in a row, 13 in a row, whatever it was. And then he lost to Justin Gaethje. That was a last late notice fight. Took a lot of damage in that fight. Got TKO'd standing. That was understandable. And Gaethje would go on to fight for the title. And then lost to Oliveira, who is now the champ. We know how good he is. So it's like, all right, he lost 2 in a row, but he lost to 2 guys who just fought for the title within the last year. Now he gets dominated by Beneil Dariush, and you start to wonder, like, is 37 too old? For lightweight, probably is. He seems to have lost a step. To me, it seemed like he was trying to force a lot of things. Like he was trying to force that teep, that front kick, when it wasn't really there. His timing was off. He kept going for that Darce choke off his back instead of trying to get back up to his feet against a guy in Dariush who's an elite level grappler. You'll catch anybody like new black belt and below, you'll catch with that Darce choke probably. But anybody who's been a black belt for a few years and who has grappled like on an international scale, you're not getting that. And I just didn't see that urgency from Tony. Like he had to know he was losing this fight. And, his corner kind of kept telling him, oh, he just doesn't want to stand with you. It's like, well, yeah, because he's beating the shit out of you on the ground. Why would he want to stand with you? So that's just like not the mentality. Like if he doesn't want to stand with you, like get back up. Don't, lay on your back and try to hold on for these desperation chokes. And then that heel hook, that inverted heel hook that Dariush had, I think it was in the second round. And he said he heard and felt Tony's leg pop. That's insane level toughness. For those of you who have never been put in a heel hook or who don't train in grappling, it's a type of thing where they say like you don't feel it until it's too late. Obviously, Tony felt it because he yelled out in pain. Beneil said he felt it pop. He heard it pop. He's going to have some long-term damage in that knee. And it really is the type of thing you think like, oh, I'm not in trouble from this. And then you feel it like basically when something's tearing in your knee is when you feel that inverted heel hook. It's a very dangerous move. It's not allowed in a lot of grappling competitions. I think it's allowed in only like one or two of them in a gi, because you have that extra friction from the gi to make it even tighter and put more torque on the leg. So this is back-to-back fights where Tony, like, first of all, 3 fights in a row where he took a lot of damage. And then back-to-back fights where he basically should have tapped out and didn't. You know, there was the armbar from Oliveira in that last fight where something popped in his arm. Like, something's wrong with his elbow now. Like, there's some cartilage torn to shit in there or something. And then that heel hook, man, that was hard to watch. I was tapping just watching it. I was like, I would have tapped right there and there and there, and I would still be tapping now. But you know, Tony just screamed and then started kicking Beneil in the hands and was able to get loose, and then had to go into the third round basically on one leg. Next level toughness, but man, I mean, toughness will only take you so far. Like at this point, especially in a division as stacked as this, it doesn't seem like Tony's going to make it to that title shot. You know, I don't see a path to it for him. Now, granted, you know, anything could happen. He could take, you know, he could fill in a last minute for like a number 1 contender fight and win, and then, you know, be right back in it. But yeah, it's not looking good. What is looking good is what I talked about last week, where if Cowboy moves back to 155 and they could do that rematch and between Tony Ferguson and Cowboy, and then, you know, winner retires, loser retires sort of thing. It looks like Cowboy's only looking to have one more. It's looking like Tony may only be allowed to have one more, the way it's going. You know, it's a sad thing because, and I realize, like, now that I'm basically all the way through breaking down this fight, I realize I'm guilty of it too. It's a bad thing when a guy wins a fight like a Beneil Dariush, and all anybody is talking about is what Tony Ferguson looked like, because he's the older fighter and he's lost a few in a row, and like, should he still be doing this? And that's the conversation, instead of like, you know, Beneil Dariush doing what he had to do to get a win over a legend like Tony Ferguson in a co-main event on a pay-per-view, when he's on a hell of a winning streak too. And you know, Dariush is probably like another fight away possibly from fighting for a title, depending on, you know, how everything shakes out with Connor and Poirier and, you know, everything else that needs to get sifted through at the top of this division. Don't forget Justin Gaethje's still around. Maybe we do Gaethje and Dariush. You know, that would be a fun fight too. I'd love to see that one. But, you know, and a lot of people having the same kind of conversation about Jacare after Saturday night as well. You know, start talking about, should Jacare still be doing this, instead of talking about, you know, how awesome Muniz looked. And I'll get to that in a little bit. Let me jump around a little bit. Rogerio Bontorin, unanimous decision over Matt Schnell. Katlyn Chookagian, unanimous decision over Viviane Araujo. I think there was a little bit of controversy about this one, just because Araujo came out so strong in that first round. She definitely won the first. The second round was close. You know, Katlyn started to step on the gas a little bit, and then Katlyn clearly won in the third round. You know, she was just outpointing Araujo at that point. Araujo seemed to get a little tired, you know, wasn't landing as hard or as often. I thought Katlyn did enough to win. You know, was it like super clear? No, I thought it would have been fine if the decision went the other way. I scored it for Katlyn. I could see the argument for Araujo. it was close. It came down to how you scored that second round. And we saw some pretty wacky judging earlier in the night. So I didn't really know what to think of it. The story of this fight leading up to it was Katlyn Chookagian's Twitter getting hacked during fight week. And I guess whoever hacked it decided to just follow a bunch of porn accounts and like a bunch of porn tweets. Now, apparently there's there's all different kinds of stuff on Twitter. Apparently there's like a group of people who go on Twitter to watch porn. And apparently there's another group of people on Twitter. Now, I'm really bad at Twitter. I'm on there. I participate. I talk about fights. I plug the podcast, stuff like that. But I'm not good at it. I'm not like a must follow account on Twitter. I'm just kind of there. But apparently there's another group of people on Twitter who look at other people's accounts and look at the tweets that they're liking. And then when they come across something unusual, they share it to everybody else. So somebody went on to Katlyn Chookagian's Twitter page and was like, hey, I wonder what Katlyn Chookagian likes today. And they saw it was all porn videos. She said she got hacked, and, there were a lot of really funny jokes on the internet. I took my stab at it too. I thought it was a lot of fun that, her account was hacked, and they decided to use that platform to highlight some porn accounts on Twitter. I think that's hilarious. And I thought her response to it was great too, because she was asked about it at the post-fight press conference, and she started to joke about it and say, like, you like what you like. And but then said, what we all kind of knew was the truth, that she was hacked. And I don't understand any of it. I don't understand the person who hacks a verified account to like porn from it. And I don't understand the people who are looking at other people's accounts to see what they liked. It's never occurred to me to look at somebody's Twitter page and say, like, I wonder what this person has liked recently. Because it's so brainless for me. I open Twitter, that's a place where I get a lot of my news, a lot of the headlines, a lot of the hot topics people are talking about. That's how I found out about this whole situation. But I don't get in depth with it. I don't look at people's profiles and research their past tweets and see what they've liked recently and all of this. So I know I'm sounding really old right now, guys. I need to have a drink. I'm old. I'm a year younger than Tony Ferguson, a few years younger than Jacare. So, we're all getting up there. It happens. But yeah, I don't understand the whole Twitter culture thing. I'm really bad at Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, by the way, at MMA on the Rocks. Follow Jeff too. I didn't know if Jeff was going to make it tonight or not. I sent him the link to join the show at @animal_Wilson. But obviously he's not going to be here. Probably should have said that at the start, in case you guys were sticking around because you were getting your hopes up. You're going to get to hear the animal probably next week. We'll get him back. Edson Barboza and Shane Burgos. Obviously, everybody was talking about the finish. I thought this was an awesome fight. Two guys who love to stand up. Shane Burgos has awesome boxing. His hands are so crisp. He was landing that jab. He was landing some big shots on Barboza. He was working the body quite a bit. A lot of people thought this was really one-sided beating by Barboza. But, Burgos was in this fight. Make no mistake. He was in it. And then, of course, the finish, what everybody was talking about, Barboza lands a clean 1-2. And, Burgos pauses for a good few seconds, like a good 3 Mississippi, and then stumbles back and falls down on the cage. It was a scary thing to see. obviously super rare that something like that happens. And, you know, we've seen similar things before. Like we've seen Justin Gaethje unconscious and still throwing punches with like good technique. It's like when you cut the head off a chicken and they still run around for 10 seconds. It's like there's muscle memory. The body kind of remembers what to do, but the brain is just shut off. And that's what happened with Shane Burgos. He took those shots. It looked like he ate them. And then his body realized that the brain was not attached anymore. And it just gave out on him. And it was a scary thing to see. You know, it's not something you see very often. And it's really concerning. You know, we don't really know that much about what happens with the brain after something like that. You know, will he be the same after this? You know, he could be fine. Could be fine. Like he could be ready to get hit in the head again tomorrow. You know, everybody's different, but probably not. You know, it's probably going to be a long road back from that one. I imagine he's going to get a hefty suspension from the athletic commission for recovery time. Probably 90 days at least with no contact. I mean, he's not supposed to spar or anything like that for 90 days. And what can you say about Barboza, man? Just one of the most technical, powerful strikers ever. I mean, the guy's amazing. He almost caught Burgos with one of those wheel kicks that he knocked out Terry Edom with. And you know, he's in a weird spot right now because that's 2 wins in a row, but before that, 3 losses. 2 of them were split decisions to Dan Ige and Paul Felder. And then he was knocked out by Justin Gaethje. But now he's back at 145 pounds and he looks good. 35 years old though. So how long, you know, can he continue cutting down to 145? But, you know, he's got a lot of momentum right now. So I don't know. It's a small window for Barboza to get to a title at 145 pounds, but you never know. I think Barboza and Korean Zabi would be a really fun fight. That would be an awesome one. There's fun matchups, you know. Barboza and Mac Holloway at some point. Who wouldn't want to see that? A lot of fun fights for Barboza. Great performance. I hope that Burgos is okay because that was scary, man. The other thing that was scary was seeing Jacare's arm get snapped in half by Andre Muniz. Muniz, man, looked good in this, and I want to stick with that. I want to stick with how good he looked. He pressured Jacare. He did exactly what he needed to do. And then the finish. So what happened here was Jacare's arm kind of got stuck under Muniz, and then a lot of Muniz's body weight was on top of the arm. So that's what contributed to the break. And the referee did a great job here. Jacob Montalvo did a great job of recognizing that, you know, Jacare's arm was broken. And then once that happens, once you lose the limb, you know, it's their responsibility to stop the fight. It's not like they let you keep fighting when they know you only have one arm to defend yourself with. Man, somebody made a lot of money if they picked Muniz by submission, because I probably would have picked anybody else on the card to lose by submission. If you told me there was one submission victory on this whole card, Jacare is actually the last person I would have picked. Yeah, and Charles Oliveira was on this card, the guy with the most submission victories in UFC history, but he has been submitted before. So Jacare would actually have been the last person I would have picked out of all, what was it, 24 people on this card? 12 fights, 24 people. Sounds about right. Yeah, credit to Muniz, man. And this is, Jacare coming off that knockout loss to Kevin Holland. Now he gets his arm broken. That's going to be a long time healing. I think he's, 43 years old. We just saw Chris Weidman a few weeks ago will get his leg broken. I think the lesson here is, like, if you're close to 40 years old, do not fight at middleweight anymore because your skeleton's going to break. Like, don't do this anymore. I mean, unless you're like Yoel Romero and you're just like a freak of nature. I'm going to feel so bad if Yoel Romero gets something broken in his Bellator fight. So, yeah, if you're in and around 40 years old, do not fight in the UFC anymore, please. We don't want to see any more broken bones. My buddy Ryan says that he wants to see the pay-per-view model go away and implement an actual ranking system. Yeah, it would be nice in a perfect world. Remember that the UFC imitates a lot of things from boxing. And boxing was never about, putting the two best fighters in there together. But think about, like, when Floyd Mayweather was on his big run, he never really fought a top 5 guy while they were actively in the top 5. He always fought them, like, after they were kind of on the decline and not really ranked anymore. That's just the example that comes to mind. Boxing was always about putting on a show. UFC is kind of doing the same thing. It's just a little bit more obvious because, the UFC belt is the most coveted belt. But the UFC is just an MMA promotion. Back in the day, you didn't know, what promotion Mike Tyson was fighting for, or what promotion Oscar De La Hoya or Floyd Mayweather was fighting for, unless you were, like, really into following boxing. You just knew there was a fight that night and there was a title on the line, and this guy's going to be the world champion when it's done. So yeah, that's where that kind of comes from. But with the UFC, since it's like pretty much all the best fighters are in the UFC. I mean, there's a lot of arguments for a lot of other things, but it's hard to prove because, guys have come from other organizations and not done well in the UFC. Some have, but very few. And then, there's other organizations, but the UFC champion is regarded as the world champion. So, that's the organization that has the microscope over it all the time. So when they do things like pay fighters not fighting for a world championship more than the fighters fighting for a world championship, it's just a little bit more obvious. All right, let's get through the rest of this card because I've been talking for 40 minutes and I'm running out of whiskey. Oh, wait. No, I'm not. Relax, folks. I had an emergency stash. A Buffalo Trace right here. Arm's reach. So that was the glorious sound of me pouring myself another snifter here. But seriously, let's get through the rest of this card. Lando, Vannata, and Mike Grundy. This was the worst judging on the card. It was a split decision, which I could see. It was a close fight, but I thought Lando won. But one judge gave it 30-27 for Mike Grundy, which means they scored all 3 rounds for Mike Grundy. Now, if you were going to give the fight to Mike and you told me you scored the first 2 rounds for him, but you thought it was close, all right, I can handle that. I didn't see it that way. I scored, 2 and 3 for Lando. But that's the only way. Like, Lando clearly won that 3rd round. Like, if you're giving it to Mike Grundy, you have to acknowledge that he lost that 3rd round. And I thought he lost 2 and 3. I thought Lando looked good here. He was hard to hold down. Obviously Mike Grundy had the wrestling advantage here. And then Lando even took Mike Grundy down towards the end of the fight. I don't think even Mike Grundy saw that coming. Grundy's a very accomplished wrestler. But, Lando looked good. His striking was so smooth. He was landing a lot. But, Grundy was landing some big shots too. He was doing a lot of damage with the things that he did land. So a good win for Lando Vannata. He looked good. This was his first fight, I believe, moving down to featherweight. He didn't gas. He got more energy as the fight went on. So that's a good sign for his future at 145. And he looked awesome. Jordan Wright making quick work of Jamie Pickett. This guy, Jordan Wright, is going to be a problem, man. He's a little weird. They call him the Beverly Hills Ninja. He's only got one loss on his record, and that was his last fight against Joaquin Buckley, knocked out in 18 seconds of the second round. But, this was a good sign that he was able to bounce back quick from that. This kid, 29 years old, never been to a decision in his career in 13 fights. He's got 7 knockouts, 5 submissions, and he's been knocked out once by Joaquin Buckley. Little bit of a serial killer vibe coming from this guy, the way he talks. Serial killer / like Sage Northcutt kind of vibes from him. But yeah, good fight. Andrea Lee submits Antonina Shevchenko with a triangle armbar. Priscilla Cachoeira TKO's Gina Mazzani. And I believe this was like a come from behind TKO. It came at the end of the second round. I didn't see the whole fight, but from what I understand, Gina was winning majority of the fight and then kind of gassed out, and Priscilla knocked her out. If I have that wrong, feel free to correct me. I'll go back and watch it later in the week. Tucker Lutz, unanimous decision over Kevin Aguilar, and then Christos Giagos with a technical submission that was a Bravo choke over Sean Soriano. Technical submission meaning the referee stopped it, so Sean didn't tap out. So I guess that means he passed out. And that was just under a minute into the second round, so I definitely want to go back and watch that one. Great card. Awesome pay-per-view. You got a great main event. I don't know how the hell he did the bonuses for this. I don't even know who won them, so I'm not going to talk about it. Let's take a look at next week. We have UFC Fight Night 188. So I will be around for this one. So we should be regular show next week, back on Sunday, hopefully with Jeff. All right, fun little card here. Definitely have my sleeper pick already eyeballed here. This is going to be back at the Apex, so I believe no crowd. Everybody keeps talking about the difference between the crowd and the no crowd and how much it has an impact on the fights. I don't see it because I don't watch the fights with the volume on, as you guys know, because I don't like to be influenced by the commentary. Not that, I think the commentary is bad or they're not good at their jobs. I don't want to be influenced by anybody else's opinions. I like to come to you guys with my own opinions, which is why I hate even doing the podcast on a Monday night as opposed to like Sunday morning. Saturday night is ideal, but I'm usually falling asleep by the end of the card. And then Sunday morning is the next best case. But, shit happens. Life happens. Sometimes you have kids and you got to take them to Disney World. That's the way it goes. All right. So, main event, Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt. This is a fun fucking fight. These are two guys who like to slug it out on the feet. Pretty similar records. 18-4 for Rob Font, 12-3 for Cody Garbrandt. The only difference is that Cody Garbrandt has more 5-round experience. I don't believe Rob Font has ever had a 5-round fight. This is such a fun fight because these are two guys who bring it on the feet. They're both well-rounded. They can both wrestle. They can both grapple. They have all of that. But they just prefer to stand and bang. Cody Garbrandt, from what I understand, I heard an interview with him on the Unfiltered podcast a while back. He had a rough go of it. He had COVID. He had a staph infection in his knee that got worse, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. And, he's moved around a little bit. He left Team Alpha Male. He's had a lot of stuff going on. But at the end of the day, this is just going to be a fun fight. These are two guys who both like to throw hard. They'll both, fight in a phone booth, so to speak. They'll get right in the pocket and just throw bombs at each other. Rob Font has very technical Muay Thai. A lot of people are not aware of that because they see what a great MMA striker he is, but he can actually fight like traditional Muay Thai very well. So that's a fun one. Xiaonan Yan against Carla Esparza in the co-main. This could be a title eliminator very well. The winner of this could probably go on to fight Rose, I would think. Esparza's got a few wins strung together, and Yan 13-1. So, keep an eye on this one for a title eliminator here. Justin Tafa against Jared Vanderaa. It's weird because this is on the main card. Justin Tafa has 6 fights. He's 4-2, but he's fun to watch. These are heavyweights, I believe. So, anything could happen there. Felicia Spencer and Norma Dumont also on this main card. Then you got David Vorbach and Rolian Paivia. Not familiar with those guys, not going to lie to you. Here's my sleeper pick, Jack Hermansson and Edmund Shabazian. So Shabazian coming off that loss to Derek Brunson, first loss of his career. He just got schooled by the veteran. And Jack Hermansson, this guy was supposed to be like he was going to take over the middleweight division. And all of a sudden he got knocked out by Jared Cannonier. Then he submits Kelvin Gastelum in like a minute with a heel hook. And then he lost his last fight to Marvin Vettori. So Jack Hermansson backed against the wall. And Shabazian has to prove that, he's the prodigy that he's been marketed to be. A lot of people were saying like he could go to be the youngest UFC champ or whatever. That's kind of out the window since the Derek Brunson fight. But not a lot of people talking about this fight. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to say that's probably going to be your fight of the night right there. That's a really fun fight. Then we got Bill Algeo coming off a win against Ricardo Ramos. That's a really fun fight as well. Ben Rothwell, last minute fight against Chris Barnett. I forget who Ben Rothwell was supposed to fight, but they pulled out. Court McGee and Claudio Silva on here. And Yancy Medeiros hang out on the prelims here against Amir Hazovic. This is a fun fight card, guys. So, yeah, UFC Fight Night 188, UFC Vegas, whatever. I can't keep track of the way they're numbering these things. UFC Vegas 27. I don't know. Don't come here for facts, guys. You just come here for, like, alcohol-influenced opinions. You all know this. All right, so next week, hopefully, we'll have Jeff the Animal Wilson back. Remember, if you guys want to grab some MMA on the Rocks merchandise, you can do so through our friends at Team Reaper, reaper1.co. As always, I'll put the links right in the show notes wherever you happen to be watching or listening to make it easy for you guys for anything you may want. I'll put the link for the t-shirt, for the sweatshirt, tank top, etc. Use the promo code MMA Rocks 10, MMA ROCKS10. Save yourself 10% off. Not just on MMA on the Rocks gear, on anything on the website. So if you want some training gear, MMA sparring gloves, some training shorts, jiu-jitsu gis, some gear bags, they got you covered. High quality stuff, great people. They're good to the fighters. So if you want to support fighters, buy some gear through Team Reaper, reaper1.co. Use promo code MMA Rocks 10. If you guys want to get a hold of Jeff the Animal Wilson, we haven't seen him or heard from him in a few weeks. So if you want to hear from him, check him out on social media, animal_Wilson. Hopefully we'll get him back on the show next week. I'm going to be home next week for a change. Memorial Day weekend, different story. That's going to be a whole different mess. Hanging out with the wife's cousins for Memorial Day. We got an Airbnb. I know I'm always on the go, guys. I can't help it. Mark Fellows about to board a flight, still checking out the show. Cheers, Mark. Have fun wherever you're going. And yeah, so next week we'll be back regular schedule, Memorial Day. Who knows? I could be on during the fights, the day after, 3 days after. You never know what you're going to get. But whatever it is, please keep staying subscribed. Keep the comments coming. Keep the feedback coming. Keep the criticism coming. I can take criticism. I have thick skin, guys. It's very pale, but it's very thick. That's the line I used on my wife when we first met. Anyway, MMA on the Rocks on all social media platforms. Go to MMAonTheRocks.com. You can send me an email, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. Any form of communication. I try to get back to everybody. I thank you all for tuning in. That's all I got. So until next time. Cheers.